Robyn. How are you?
I'm great, Crispin. How are you today?
I'm really, really good. I've been looking forward to having you on live chat for when did we first chat? Like a month and a half ago to set this up.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this entire time in the back of my head, I'm like, I have all these questions. Like this one's going to be really good. So I'm super, super happy that we're finally able to connect today. For everyone that doesn't know who Robyn is the owner of RDW Design Studios. And Robyn's kind of a cool lady. She custom designs websites for interior designers. So our chat today is going to be super valuable. There's lots of information coming our way. And I just want to sort of dig in and figure out and find out with you, Robyn, what we need to be doing as interior designers to really have an amazing website and the suggestions and things that I know you're going to give for those of us that are just websites are not our thing and we just aren't in the position to do, custom work, what we can do to just sort of up our game and polish things off a little bit. I first heard about you, I want to say probably 3 or 4 months ago. I listen to podcasts when I take my dog for a walk. So I was with my dog and we're walking through the park and I think it was maybe Laura's podcast. But I know you've actually been featured on many podcasts because you're quite a special lady. So I heard you on Laura's podcast and you guys were talking about websites for interior designers. And, I listen to a lot of podcasts and most often it's just the very same generic, you have to speak to your target audience, you have to know your target market and but you were really diving in and giving specifics and that really piqued my interest. So I reached out to you. You're not in, web development, like you don't come from a web development background at all. Can you tell us a bit about your background? Where do you start from?
Yeah, I'd love to share this. So I went to college and majored in history, and then I went on to grad school and got a master's in art history. And I actually worked for 10 years in an international art gallery in their Manhattan location. I worked with probably like the most high-end type of clients that you can work with, people who are spending $20 million on a piece of art, call it expensive wallpaper, if you will. It doesn't get that much more high-end than that. So I take that experience that I learned at the art gallery, understanding the luxury market buying habits, and I take that and apply it to strategic website design because a lot of my interior design clients are at a stage in their business where they're growing and evolving and they're trying to attract a more high-end client. So it really ties in very nicely. So I did not come from a technical coding development type of background the way a lot of web guys do. I'm completely self-taught in that respect and really approach it from the design and the strategy standpoint and bring that art background, the fine art background into it.
That's a pretty crazy story to go from like the luxury.
Yeah,
it is your secret sauce. It is your special sauce. It's like, like two worlds that really wouldn't collide, but kind of when you think about it, there's a lot of crossovers. I bet that happened. Yeah. So then tell me, how did you, go from that world, getting into web development and custom website design? Like, how does that just, if you don't come from that background, where did that idea come from?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, really quickly, I moved up to Boston when I left New York, met my husband at the time, now ex-husband, and we got a pug, Lulu, and decided to open up a dog walking business at his suggestion.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so we ran that for 11 years and then got a divorce. And I was like, what do I do now? Because I didn't really want to continue doing that. So I understood everything there was to know about running a business because I had done it for, over 10 years and started to think about what do I really enjoy? What do I want to do? I built our websites for the dog walking business. So completely self-taught and had actually along the way had some friends who started businesses ask me to do their websites. So that's kind of how I fell into it and just kind of kept learning. And I'm like, why not try this? And it took off.
That's how it happens, right? That's even like the same kind of segue for designers is like we start doing one friend's house and then their friends want us to work with them. And then it just kind of spreads by word of mouth that way. So very organic. Now, why interior designers? What's the connection there?
Yeah, so that's funny. So when I started this business, I hired a coach and the first thing that she said is you need to pick a niche. And I understood that. It made complete sense to me. Didn't know who I wanted to work with. So she was like, well, why not the pet care industry? It's low hanging fruit. Like you're in it, you
Right.
know it. I'm like, no, I want a clean break. This is not what I want to be part of anymore.
Yeah.
I love organizing. I love decorating. Please forgive me. I watch HGTV and I love it. It's how I
So
spend
do
my free
I. I
time.
think every designer does too. But we'll see things and we're like, but we still watch it. So don't feel
Yeah.
bad.
Well, it's funny because now I watch it, and because I
Now
know
you
so much
know.
about your industry, I'm like, oh
Mhm.
no, that would never happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm like, I love interior design. I work with other home industry professionals as well, so like architects, organizers,
Mhm.
stagers. And I'm like, it just kind of is something I'm really interested in and I
Mhm.
love learning about. I'm like, let's try this.
Mhm.
So I started learning about the industry, joined a whole bunch of Facebook groups, and it just sort of took off.
Oh, I like
Yeah.
it.
And it fits perfectly because I'm approaching things from an aesthetic standpoint. The websites you can design for an interior designer are going to be beautiful because your photos of your work are
Mhm.
beautiful. It just kind of fits in perfectly with what I'm all about.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. I like that. Um, we kind of, as designers, I mean, most of us are always sort of learning, wanting to just improve our skills. A lot of that comes into like marketing and how we can use marketing to our advantage. And I've seen over, several different platforms, people suggest that, if you're just starting out as an interior designer, like don't spend your time and your energy building a website or building your social, like build all these other things first. And I want to know what you think about that. Like, I already know what you think about that. Because for me, I get where they're coming from, but for me, design is such a visual, well, it is completely a visual, industry. And when clients are going to look for interior designers and they're, scoping out who they might hire to help, work on their project, what's the first thing they do, right? It's like they look for a website, they look for social media, they want to see social proof. So what do you say to, some of these platforms that are suggesting like, don't bother building a website and don't bother building out social media? What's going on there?
That's such a great question. So the first thing I'll say is the most important thing when you're first starting out is getting clients.
Mhm.
So while I believe a website today is like the yellow pages, 40 or 50 years ago, you have to have a web presence to be
Mhm.
considered a serious business.
I
Otherwise, people are
agree.
going to look at you as a hobby
I
and
I
not take you
agree.
seriously.
Yeah. Okay, I agree.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we're on the same page there because I just
Yeah.
when I see like don't have a website, like that's or not don't have a website, but don't have that as your first, business thing to set up when you first start out in business. I just think like, what? Like, wait a sec.
Yeah.
That's the first place we go is to check out people's websites.
It is the first place. It's
Yeah.
often the very first impression you're going to make on a potential client.
Mhm.
However, all of that being said, what I would definitely not recommend is what I like to call like analysis paralysis. So
Mhm.
don't in the very beginning spend forever picking colors, playing with a logo on
Yeah.
Canva, trying to put together a website and taking all of your time doing that and not getting out there and networking and getting clients.
Mhm.
So, like, yes, you need one, but
Mhm.
don't let that stop you from
Yeah.
getting out there.
Yes.
And I also, and this is going to sound funny coming from a website designer, I don't recommend investing in a custom website in the very beginning. I
Okay.
definitely don't. It's a huge investment. And the reason that I don't think you should is I firmly believe, and I would love you to weigh in on this, Crispin,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
in the first 2 or so years of your business, everything is going to change. Like,
Mhm.
look at me, for example. I started out working with coaches and then I changed. So,
Yeah.
obviously, my messaging has to change
That's
completely.
right.
My ideal client changed. When I first started out, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm going to do website design and this and this and this. And then I'm like, no, no, no. I'm niching down just in website design.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
everything about what you're doing changes. So, that means it's all going to have to change
Again.
across the board in all of your marketing.
Yeah.
Your website is your most important marketing tool.
Mhm.
So in the beginning, maybe DIY it yourself
Mhm.
or use a template.
Mhm.
And then when you have the clarity around like who you serve, how you help, like what makes you unique, what your services actually are, and you
Mhm.
have your processes in place and you can
And
really speak
build.
intelligently about everything,
Yeah.
then it's time to invest in a custom website.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
That's so interesting that you say that because I have a funny story that I'm going to interject here with about my own experience going to an agency to get a beautiful professional, the bells and whistles, get a website done for me. Because I think today I've had 5 different websites. So you're absolutely right. Things change over the years, and then technology changes, and just one day you wake up and you're like, this isn't me anymore. Like this website, this brand, like it just doesn't speak to who I'm working with now or who I am as a designer. Time to change it. So you will go through iterations and different websites. And so a couple years ago, I was in the position where I thought, it's time to level up. Like my last website, there was nothing wrong with it. I built it. It was I used a template. I think it was a WordPress template, and it was fine. But I just thought, I thought I had to go to an agency to get this, big professional site that I thought I had to have. So I went and I started working with one, and it became pretty apparent really quickly, like, I know you only know what you know. And you sometimes as a designer or whoever, for your own business, you have sort of a tunnel vision, and you need that outside expertise to level you up sometimes. So I get that there's that balance in between there, but for me, I'm very aware, and I think I'm very in tune with my own brand and what I'm hoping to achieve. And I just needed like the development and a little bit of that polish put onto it. But it was it became very clear that they were creating this brand for me that just wasn't me, and they weren't listening. That was the key. Like that was the one thing I felt, I'd give feedback, and then I would get pushback that, well, I'm not listening to them and I'm not taking their expertise. And I tried to be open to that, but I just, in my intuition and my gut, knew like, but this isn't the direction that I want to head in. Like it was this little luxury, like really luxury brand. And I'm like, well, we're high end, but I wouldn't consider myself that sort of like bougie luxury. And that's what they were trying to push me into. And it felt so inauthentic and uncomfortable. And eventually I got called into the boardroom to talk to the owner. I got lectured by the owner, actually, that I was being difficult and I'm not listening to the staff and I'm not taking direction. And I just decided we're going to part ways at that point because this isn't what I wanted. So I just left what they'd done, and I built my own website. So the website that I have now currently, I did myself and I used a template, but I sure could have used someone like you had I known you existed to kind of dig down deeper with me into the brand. And, the fact that you work with designers, you have such a better connection with what we do and who we are versus just a standard agency that works with all kinds of industries. So
I think that happens a lot. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've heard that it does. And that's so strange.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people, when they get to the point where you were, they do tend to work with sometimes a bigger agency or a local agency. And it's not necessarily the best fit because they don't really understand your industry. And interior design is unlike nothing else. And I think what a lot of my clients like is when we're talking about, let's say, their website architecture, the pages on the website. And I'm like, so what are your services? What do you do? And they'll say to me, they'll list off what they do. I know what full service design is, and I know what a color consultation is, and I know what designer by your side is. So they don't have to explain it to me. And I automatically know, whether things should be split off into different kinds of services pages or all be lumped onto one, when we're thinking about user experience or SEO, things like that. So it's just an automatic understanding, which I think really helps,
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And I have your story. I have heard it a lot before from clients that I've worked with.
That's so sad because
it makes me sad.
I'm not knocking agencies at all because I think they serve a huge purpose. But for me, just my own personal experience, like I'm not your average, client that comes in and is like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I had built a couple of websites, like you almost, just enough to get yourself into trouble, but not enough to actually like get you there. So I think I kind of was a bit of a different client, and the fact that I, had my own opinions and my ideas, and like they were building them out a bit, but they had their own vision and they were trying to put that onto me. And I just kept saying like, no, we need to work on it. And then it just became, I became almost like, our worst design clients, where our clients want to see like revision after revision because the vision just isn't connecting. And I fully understood in that moment, like they're not listening to me. They're trying to give me what they think I need versus like hearing what I'm telling them and then bringing that out and developing that. So it was interesting because in that moment, like I was the client and I was a difficult client. but oh well.
Well, it's funny because
Whatever.
web design is somewhat like interior design.
Mhm.
It needs to be a collaborative approach.
I
The
agree.
designer has to really listen
Mhm.
and hear what the client is saying. And with my custom websites, we generally spend at least 2 months on the strategy and preparation phase.
Mm.
So by the time I'm getting to the design, I have such a good understanding of their business and their brand and what they're looking for
Yeah.
that my revision phase, I mean, usually I'll
It's
have like 20
minimal.
minutes of revisions that I'm
Yeah.
making to their website.
Yeah.
So,
That's amazing.
because you really, if you listen, you can get it. And, you know, I'm not going to be one of those designers who's going to fight my clients on what they want. So, for example, I had one client who insisted on having a sort of carousel of images at the top of her homepage. And I know that's not a good thing to do. It's not good for
Mhm.
user experience. It's not
Mhm.
good for page load speed.
Mhm.
So I feel like my job is to let her know why I don't recommend it. And then the ultimate decision is hers. She can
Mhm.
take on, what I've told her along with what she wants and then decide what she wants. And then I'm going to do what she wants. It's her website, you know.
Yeah. That's the same with design, right? It's like
Mhm.
you can lead a horse to water and then that's
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Some people will
Exactly.
just do what they want to do.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's too funny. Too funny. Well, I mean, I made it through it. That's fine. It took me probably 2 solid months straight to build out this template. And I'm very happy with it. I know for sure though that it doesn't have everything that it probably could have, or it could be, there's always things that could be improved. And we'll talk about it at the very end of our chat here, but this is where you would come in handy. And I'm actually, I want to be your first customer off of this live chat to do this, but I would love a website audit because I know that you also offer that as a service. So we'll
I
get
do.
into that. Because I know, there's so many designers out there that just don't have the finances to be able to commit to a fully customized website, but that doesn't mean that they can't work with someone like you, to bring
Exactly.
in and get some consulting, to tweak it, to be able to manage it on their own. So there's sort of a hybrid. I know you offer sort of a hybrid service where, they're able to manage it and make changes, but your eyes are on it for them to help bring it
Yeah.
up and level it up for them, which I think is
Yeah.
beautiful. And
Thank
it's a great
you.
offering. So
Yeah.
can you tell me, what do we need? So for these types of, websites where we're maybe building it ourselves, it's a
Mhm.
template, it's not fully customized, or your hands aren't, working everything. What are
Mhm.
some things that, we definitely need to have on our websites as interior designers so that our message is clear? When we talk about the whole speak to your target audience, what the heck does that even really mean? And what does it look like on a website?
My recommendation, if you are doing your own website, there's 5 must-have pages when you're first
Perfect.
starting out. So you want to have a home page, an about page,
Mhm.
a services page, a portfolio page, and a contact page.
Simple.
And simple. That's
Yeah.
what you can start with, 5 pages. I will say one that I think you can take off immediately, and this is just my opinion. Everybody has their own thoughts on this. I
Mhm.
am not a fan of a testimonials page.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
Like
think,
its own standalone page.
yeah, I
Okay.
think testimonials are one of the most important things for you to have on your website. Everyone visiting your website, because everybody in the world right now, we all have short attention spans. We're
Mm-hmm.
all rushing through. Chances are they're not going to click over and read a
Mm-hmm.
testimonials page. And also, most testimonials pages are designed horrifically. They're just words. They're totally
It's
boring. There's
just
no
like
font
text.
hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're just going to look at it and be like, ugh, and leave. The
Okay.
best way to use testimonials on your website is
Mhm.
incorporate them on all the pages of your website. So, for
Every
example,
every page,
on
not just like
every
your home
page,
page or a contact
home,
page, like
about,
sprinkle
services,
them in.
sprinkle them in. I
Okay.
actually, on my website, I have, and this is something else that your site needs, but at my call to action at the bottom of every page,
Mhm.
right before my call to action is an excerpt of a testimonial.
Hmm.
Because think about it.
Mm-hmm.
These are strong sales pitches
Mm-hmm.
in your client's words. So it's not coming from you. So
That's
it
right.
carries so much more weight. If
Yeah.
you have that right next to the button that says contact me,
Mm-hmm.
don't you think the chance of them clicking
Yes.
that button is now going to go up?
Yeah, I
So,
do. Because people
mhm,
then see like, oh, it's social proof, right? It's that
yes,
well, this website looks good. She looks like she knows what she's talking about. But then if you have someone from the outside also speaking on your behalf as a paid customer that was happy, right next to that, let's work together or contact us button. Yeah, I would actually be like, you got it. Boom.
Exactly.
If they say
So
you're
what you
great,
wanna,
that's good.
and also, yeah, and like, let's say on your about page, you want to have excerpts from testimonials that speak directly about what it was like to work with you. On your services page, excerpts that speak directly to that service. Why not have a testimonial above your contact form or below your contact form? You know, if somebody's on the fence about whether they want to fill that out, maybe a really lovely testimonial can make the decision for them. So you want to use them strategically throughout the entire website, not just sticking them on a testimonials page.
I love it. I think that's super smart. And I haven't even done that on my site. So let me make a note, and that's what I'll be doing after we hang up today. No, that's
and then
great.
Since I sort of already mentioned it, you want to make sure that you have a very clear call to action.
Okay.
You might have seen this referred to before. It's also called a CTA. So call to action is, what is the main goal of your website? What is the primary action that you want a visitor to take? So for interior designers, it is generally going to be to fill out your contact form, to book that discovery call. You know, if you're e-commerce, it's going to be to purchase something. It could be to sign up for something, to buy something. But for interior designers, it's going to be to contact you. So what you're doing then is, very politely, you want to guide visitors to take that action, because they don't know what it is you want them to do. You have to tell them. So you can have a secondary call to action. So your homepage, for example, you know, you might have learn more that takes them to your services page. You might have you know, more about the owner or the team that takes them to the about page. But what I like to do is have that primary call to action that's taking them to the contact page on every single page or blog post of your website.
Okay.
Yeah, so they know what to do. Yeah. Yeah. We have to guide them and tell them what to do.
I find that's like so true in so many aspects of design, period, but definitely on the website, because people just, you know, they get caught up, oh, pretty pictures, and then reading about you, and then they get distracted over here and here, and then they don't come back to your site. So that sort of like breadcrumb trail, I think, is really important.
Very important.
What about, you mentioned the contact page or contact form. I've, you know, myself in the past, I've had, rather than just like a generic, you know, name, number, little message, and then send, like I've also had sort of like a questionnaire where they fill in like more details about, you know, the project, the start date, the size, is it furnishings, decorating, is it a new build? What are your thoughts on, you know, having something like a questionnaire as a contact form? Is that too much, like right off the hop, or should you have something like that on your website?
So my feeling on that is, it 100% depends on where you are in your business and how full your pipeline is. So I call my contact form an application, and there are a lot of questions on it. And I didn't used to do that, but now I do. So it also goes into your sort of lead management process that your business has. So I think having a good amount of questions and intake form is a great idea. It allows you to qualify those leads and decide, based on some of that preliminary information, if it is worth having a discovery call with them, or do you need a little bit more information before you have a discovery call with them, things like that. But the other thing to remember is, again, everybody's in a rush and has a short attention span. And are you asking too many questions, and are you losing potential leads filling out your form because you're asking too much and they don't want to be bothered to fill it out? So it's kind of that fine line between too much and what you really need. And, you know, to that end, deciding on whether you want to automate people having access to your calendar to book a discovery call is something you should be thinking about. You know, I personally don't, because I read every inquiry form before I actually then send a link to have them schedule that call. So again, these are all process things that can be taken care of on your
right?
website.
For everybody's business.
Different for everybody. So someone at your stage of business, or my stage of business, yes, we're going to ask an awful lot more questions. But in the beginning, when you just want to get those people on the phone, it might be worth having less questions. And I would also be careful about what you ask. So some people are going to be really apprehensive about giving away too much very personal information in a form.
That's what I found too. They like leave those areas. I never make it like when I did in the past have that questionnaire, I was all just sort of like, it was never mandatory that they had to fill out each thing. Because that's sort of like a deterrent for a lot of people. Yes. And then I would find that, some of the more personal things before you had a chance to actually talk to them either in person or over a Zoom or on the phone, they just are not willing to give up. And in this day and age, I'm not either. I'm not willing to give up that information as well. And I would find a lot of times my contact form would come back and there's big sections of stuff missing. And I'm like, okay, I have to invest a bit more time talking to someone and building up a bit of a trust relationship first before I get all that information from them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why two sort of boring things, but I'll just mention them. That's why having an SSL certificate on your website and a privacy policy on your website are so important.
Okay, what's an SSL certificate?
So it stands for Secure Sockets Layers, I believe. And basically, that a website has one if when you look at their URL in the browser tab, it has a padlock.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And generally nowadays, if they don't have an SSL certificate, Google will kind of flash something up like security warning, this isn't safe, and they won't even let you go there.
Okay, so that's what that is. There's the odd, you don't get it too very often, but the odd time you'll go to someone's website and it's like security, and you're like, okay, no, I'm not going to click on it. That's why. Oh,
yeah. Okay. But it basically is going to encrypt data that's being sent over the internet. So it's a safety level layer, right? And then the other thing is, if you're collecting any kind of personal information on your website and a contact form, even name, address, phone, name, phone, email, that's personal information. You must have a privacy policy. And having that is going to give people filling out your form a little bit more reassurance because it's explaining how you're using their personal information.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. That's important to have. Okay.
Yeah. Two boring things, but important things.
But super important things, right? And like maybe we're not thinking about it, but a stranger coming to the site, giving information and wanting to sort of like engage further with you, that might be really important to them if they're worried about their personal information. Exactly. Some good points. What other?
And then to go back to your question initially, a couple of things. So I know you had asked like what we need to have on the different pages of the website to make it successful. So on your homepage, the most important thing to have as close to the very top as possible is what you do, how you do it, and who it helps them and who you help, and then what do they do next? What's the next step? So that when people land on your website, they know they're in the right place.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a super important thing to do. On your about page, really important is, this is going to sound a little strange, but your about page isn't all about you. Actually, this applies to your entire website. Your website is not about you and your business. Your website is about how you and your business help your ideal client solve their problem. On the about page, for example, we don't want this to read like a resume. I grew up here and I loved designing and I went to school here and I did this and this and this, because that's all about you. Okay. So what you want to do is look at your past experiences and what you've gone through, schooling, jobs, family, whatever it might be. And what is your special sauce? What out of everything that you've experienced in your life makes you unique? We all have something. It's just a matter of figuring out what it is. What sets you apart from all of the other designers in your vicinity who are doing the exact same thing? Right. That's what's going to compel somebody to fill out your inquiry form. And then be creative. Like, you guys are creatives. Have a fun section on your about page. Make it, I've been dying to do this on someone's website and no one's taken me up on this yet. Why don't you create a mood board of all the things that you love? Put a picture of your husband on there, or your kids, or your dogs, or where you like to travel, or that a picture of coffee. If you're a big
cool. That's a great idea.
But as a way for people to get to know you as a person, right? So there's lots of creative ways that you can do that. And then also, especially on your about page, look at all of the sentences that start or have I or we in them and try to rewrite them so that they're you centric. So that
it's like switches.
The ideal client is reading them. It's about them, not about you, if that makes sense. So you want to take an I and turn it into a you. So it's about them and not about you.
That makes sense.
Makes a huge difference. Yeah. Services pages, pages. The whole thing you want to do here is sell the transformation, not the features. So don't include bullet points of what they get in the color consultation. Explain how the color consultation is going to transform their lives, how it solves their problem, right? That's what they're interested in. They don't want to know how you get from A to Z. They want to know Z.
Right.
That
makes so much sense. Robyn, that makes so much sense. It sounds so simple, but like when I think of my own way, I'm like, oh, failed.
Well, I think about like the completely first website I did. I listed out like all the technical things that I did on the website. Like it's built on WordPress and I use this plugin. And I'm like, my clients don't care what platform it's built on. They don't even know what a plugin is. Why am I talking about this?
This makes, I'm having an aha moment. And I feel like this makes so much sense because that's the stuff that like is important to us. Like in our minds as designers, we're like, we went to school, we can do this, we do full service. And what does that entail? But you're right, to a client, that's like speaking the industry jargon. That's like, they don't care. They just want to know that you can do the job, you can do it well, and how it's going to serve them. Right. And how it's going to like change their lives. Oh, Robyn, it makes so much sense.
And that's kind of where storytelling comes into play, right? So you want to tell your story from the perspective of how it makes you uniquely equipped to help your ideal client and do what you do. And you want to tell the story of, so when you get more advanced and you have a bigger website and you break out your portfolio, let's say into project pages, that's where you want to tell the story of the project so that you can appeal to clients on an emotional level. So let's say you did a kitchen and living room area for a client and you took down walls and now it's open instead of being all closed off. You want to tell the story about how before, the mom would be in the kitchen cooking dinner and she was completely cut off from the family who was watching the football game in the other room. And now that the walls have come down, there's an island and the kids can do their homework there while she's preparing dinner.
And everyone's together and it's like
telling the story. You want to appeal on an emotional level, especially because interior design, whether you are appealing to a luxury market or not, is a luxury service. It is a want, not a need, right? So in order for people to buy into it, we want them to, you want to approach everything from the heart, not the head.
Yeah, emotion, that makes sense.
Not intellect. Yep.
Yeah. Huh. And then like, it's so simple. And yet it's like when you're thinking of your website and how you're going to display what you do and how you do it. Like we don't often start there. I don't think, at least I don't. I'm kind of in the middle because I'll get going and I'll be like, oh, I need to kind of bring in the emotion. But then I get back into that, technical designer brain. And I'm like, I forget it. So those are great points. That's some really great tips in there just to sort of switch your verbiage and get that storytelling going. And instead of, making it about yourself completely, making it more about the client and how you're solving those problems. And that's what you guys mean when you're saying, speak to your ideal target, market, to your ideal client and, pepper verbiage through there that shows how you can solve their problems.
Yeah. Well, that's why understanding who your ideal client target audience is so important. Because then if you really have a deep understanding of them, you'll know the words they use when they describe the problems that they're
Yeah.
dealing with. And then you
Yeah.
can use those words, because the last thing you want to do is use industry jargon that
Right.
they don't understand, right?
No.
I mean, think about it. How many of your clients knew what full service design was before they hired you and you talked about it? Like, they
Not
don't know what
many,
full service
probably.
design is,
No.
right? It's
They're like,
just
it
not
sounds good to them, but they're like, yeah, whatever. We don't know what that
right,
means.
right. And like,
Explain it to us.
yeah, and
Yeah.
decorator and designer, like, I know they have two different meanings, and in the
Hmm.
industry they mean different things, but your
Hmm.
regular person on the street who's just looking for
Hmm.
design help is going to use those two words interchangeably.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
don't know the
That's true.
difference,
Yeah,
right? I mean, it's
that's
our
true.
job to educate our clients, but
Yeah.
so you want to speak very simply. You want to make everything really clear and simple.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and you want to be creative in certain places, but not in other places. So
Right.
like your main menu at the top of the page, that is not a place to be creative.
No.
If you have a blog, call it blog.
Yeah.
Do not call it my thoughts or journal. Call it
Yeah.
that on the page if you want to,
Hmm.
but not in the menu where you just want it to, you want to use the conventional wording.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What about if you have like a small team? So I have, just a handful of designers and they're contract designers. So they come in and out of projects all the time as needed. How do we like the about us
Yeah.
page? What's a nice way to sort of combine everybody, but not be too just robotic about it, or be on the flip side of that, like overly like this is all about us and look at us. Like,
Yeah.
what's that happy medium in there?
So I think even if it's a team, still call it about in the menu,
Okay.
because that's what people are looking for. If you want to call it meet the team at the top of the page, that's fine, but use about in the menu. And then I think when you have a team, what can be really nice is to start out the page with either like a history of the firm, why the firm got started, talk about the firm's philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
the firm's values,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And then you can go into the, owner, founder, principal, lead designer, and then the team members after that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. And then I would also sprinkle in testimonials there.
Of course. And you're like, and those testimonials.
And those
Oh,
testimonials.
I love
Yeah.
it. No, that's really good. That's good.
Yeah.
And if it's just a solopreneur,
Mhm.
you can, I think even if you're a solopreneur, I love this idea even more because, you might be thinking, well, I don't have a team and I don't have a lot of things. I don't want to talk about myself, ad nauseum here. That idea of doing a mood board and having like, you could do it in Canva, right? You can get a
Oh,
mood board
gotcha.
template and then put
Mhm.
like pictures of like your dogs or your travel or your interests, your hobbies,
Yeah.
you,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
some lifestyle shots of you working on a project or something and on your about page. I think
Absolutely.
that would be super cute. And
Oh, yeah.
I don't mean cute
You
as in
can do
cutesy, but just like really personal and just like a connection,
Yes, it's a
virtually.
unique way for someone to form a connection. Like I
Yeah.
have a little get to know me section. I have seen people do questions and answers.
Mm-hmm.
You can do this or that. So
Mm-hmm.
this or that, coffee or tea, dog or cat, ocean or mountains. It's just
Mm-hmm.
a
Simple.
creative way for people to get to know the person a little bit
Yeah.
in a way that they're not reading blocks of text.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there might also be like what I call sort of an icebreaker. Like you're
Mhm.
sharing an icebreaker potentially with a client or potential client, you're strangers essentially. But if they see something on your website and it's personal and it's maybe a place you've both traveled to, or your family grew up there, you have family connections in Europe somehow, it sort of like gives that icebreaker initially for that first point of contact where you're like, wait a second, we have some point of commonality. I
Mhm.
used to do this with like the questionnaire. I would ask a couple of fun things at the end about, what was your favorite place to travel and whatnot. And then there was a couple times people would say Croatia. And my husband and his family is Croatian. So that's the first thing I would use as like an anchor and an icebreaker is like, thank you so much for, filling out that questionnaire. How crazy is it that? And then I would sort of lead with that. And then right away for me, it was like the little bit of psychology that cemented how we're actually connected, even though we're not.
Mhm.
And right away, I found like the barriers would come down. They were much more open to talk about different things because they felt like they knew you a little bit better than just a stranger behind a website. So that's also a
It's
good way
true.
to kind of like pepper those sort of icebreakers throughout so that, when clients reach out, if you've got that point of connection, you grab onto that and
Mhm.
develop your relationship in that first couple minutes.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that idea. I mean, the whole point of your website is it's there to get people to know, like, and trust you,
Right.
because they have to know you, like you, and trust you before they will take action and convert into a lead.
Yes, that's true.
So everything that you're doing on your website has to be with that know, like, trust in the back of your head.
Totally. What about for new designers that don't feel this comes up a lot in sort of our mentoring relationships, is like the new designers, they're just like, oh, I don't have any like beautiful professional projects. I don't have anything to show on my website. And I always say that that's baloney. There's so many things that we can do like with smartphones now that, look semi-professional. So I don't believe that at all. But what are your suggestions for new designers that maybe don't have a large portfolio? What can they do for photography? And, to get that nice, clean, professional looking aesthetic, what would you recommend?
Yeah. So I will start by saying that I do think there is a difference between professional photography and cell phone photography. But in the beginning, professional photography is an expense that you cannot afford, and you probably haven't done projects that you want to invest in professional photography yet. Right. So again, that's something to work toward in the future. So when you're first starting out, cell phone photography is fantastic. I mean, the quality of the cameras in there is really good now. There are courses that you can take on how to do really good cell phone photography and lighting and everything like that, so your photos can look more professional. And I think those are great resources. And as far as what to put in your portfolio, you designed your own house. No one has to know it's yours. Take pictures of it, put it up there. That's
right.
Right?
I've done that.
Yeah. And
for a friend, right?
Friends, exactly. There is no reason why renderings and mood boards and makeup projects. I know web designers who design websites and put them up in their portfolio, even though they haven't designed them for anyone when they're first starting out, just to have something up there, right? And then take it down once you've got, more to add to it. But there's plenty that you can include in the beginning. And the other thing I'll say is, I don't think anyone is going to hire you based on the number of photos in your portfolio.
True. And wouldn't you agree that actually having like less is more? Like sometimes, websites, I've been on my different websites and, looking at portfolios, and it's just like gallons and gallons of photos. And it's like, you can give this message, you could get the message across with even like 10 per project, and really thoughtful, beautiful, capture just really classic moments, instead of just like, I'm guilty of this myself in the beginning, because you think you have to show everything to look like you're, like you're legit. And like, no, the more I got into my business and in the years, I pulled stuff off that I was like, oh yeah, not proud of this, or like, this doesn't match what I'm working on now in terms of, caliber and whatnot. So it comes off the site. So I have dozens and dozens and dozens of projects that will never see the light of day, unfortunately, that I'm still proud of and worked on, but I really only want to put, the featured galleries on my site now. So
for sure,
editing is important too.
Your portfolio should be ever evolving. Your whole website should be ever evolving. It's not a put it up there and leave it.
Yeah.
But your portfolio, especially, what should be in there when you've got enough jobs under your belt are your best work, but also what you want to attract more of. So let's say you really want to specialize in kitchen and bath. Your portfolio should not be featuring playrooms.
Yeah.
And then also think about your ideal client. If your ideal client are single men in their 20s, your portfolio should not be featuring playrooms.
Right.
So you want to think about all of that when you're selecting what's in there. And obviously, usually our most recent work is our best work, because we're always growing and getting better, right? So, I mean, I would say most of my projects don't go into my portfolio. I mean, because I work with, I have worked with a law firm, I have worked with a chiropractor. They're not in my portfolio. I don't necessarily want to attract more of that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. So you're doing it right.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't in the beginning, but then as you learn too, as you get going, and you're just like, oh Lord, let's take this off. Like, I thought this was cool in the moment, or like, I will say that my biggest regret in my entire professional career is not investing in professional photography, like earlier on. I have probably 8 to 9 years worth of, portfolio work that I will never, ever be shown anywhere. And some of it's like big commercial jobs. And I'm like, I just didn't at the time feel like I needed to make that expense. And like, I know now, like that's the first thing I would be saving for or billing for, you know, in my project to recoup the cost, to recover those costs.
Yes.
But it's so sad, like how many projects just will never see the light of day because I took pictures myself and they, you know, at the time I was like, oh yeah, they're fine. No, they weren't. They were so amateur and dumb.
You really can tell the difference. And I agree with you. I
Yes.
highly recommend investing in that. And to that end, also investing in brand photography.
Yes,
So
lifestyle photography.
Lifestyle photography is really important. You know, having professional photos of you and your team and, you know, photos of you in action,
Yeah.
you know, those really make a difference on your website and are definitely worth having.
And I would say too, like if you're a new designer, this is just my thoughts and a suggestion is like, if you don't have, you know, a large portfolio, you don't have a big project ready to be photographed, get, you know, a lifestyle photographer for 1 to 2 hours and go to like either, you know, a past project or a friend's house that has a really beautiful living room or just an open space, or even just like a coffee shop that's got a cool aesthetic. And
hotel lobby.
Yes, you can, or a museum or any place that will allow you to do that for just even 2 hours. You know, you could invest a couple $100 and get some really nice lifestyle shots of yourself in a cool background that you could pepper on your website and help to kind of fill the gaps until you build your portfolio up. That's a really good way to sort of boost that brand power too.
I just rebranded and did a big lifestyle photo shoot in the spring. And I rented an Airbnb for the day.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great idea. And
There's
being
lots
where
of
we
creative
are,
things you can
yeah,
do.
in BC, like especially if you're in Kelowna, there's a lot of designers here in Kelowna. We have such beautiful surroundings, all these Airbnbs on the lake. Like you could really, you know, amp it up with renting an Airbnb or like going to like a public space. Yeah, that's a great idea. Great idea.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Or even a showroom.
You
know,
yes,
I mean,
we work
it's
with
really
furniture and decor and they're
pictures
set up
of
and
you
beautiful
with paint samples, tile samples, fabric samples. You know what I mean?
It's a great idea. Yeah, that's okay, Robyn. Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's so simple, right? But we're just not in it enough to be like, oh yes, that's what we should do. We're always like, what do we do? We need someone to tell us.
It's the same reason why I can't pick a paint color for my home.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So yeah, we all have our sense of genius, right?
There you go. Yeah. We just, let's see, I'm just want to be mindful of our time. We talked about the pages that you should have as basics. What are a couple key things that you would recommend if someone has like a fully, you know, decked out website, but maybe, you know, are looking to, they're looking to polish it and to level up a little bit. What are some things that you would take off and just don't even have on your website at all? What's too much?
That's a great question. I would say, that testimonials page, I would definitely take off.
And just sprinkle it throughout as like headers or
just little bits. I would, if you are not consistently blogging, I would take your blog away.
Really?
Yeah. Unless you've got enough on there and you've removed the dates. So like I blogged for 2 years. I don't blog anymore because I don't enjoy it. I've taken all the dates off so you don't know when the most recent one was posted, but there's over 30 or 40 blog posts there. So it's
that's good. Blog. Yeah.
If you have 2 or 3 posts and you have the dates there and the last date you posted was 2020, your blog is actually hurting you.
I'm laughing because that's me. It's not 2020, but it's like maybe I thought earlier this year, I'm like, I'm going to write a blog once a week. And I only did 2. And that's all that happened.
Yeah.
So it should take them down.
You should, because the message that sends to people is
you're inconsistent.
It's inconsistent. And, you know, are you even active here? Like, do you know what I mean? So it just doesn't send the right kind of message. So you just want to think about that. I would say, not necessarily things to take off, but things to always reevaluate are, have your services changed? Has your process changed? Has your ideal client changed? Have team members changed? So that you're constantly updating the copy or the words on the website to reflect any of those changes that have happened. You want to keep it up to date, again, because it's the first impression. And then I think rather than taking things off, it's more important that it all be laid out and designed in a easily digestible way, depending on the buying personality of the visitor to your website. So that's where using proper font hierarchy for headlines, subheadlines, body text is so very important. Having really short paragraphs, bolding things or italicizing things, using different colors, setting the backgrounds differently from different section to section, using different design elements, having a lot of white space so that your eye can actually visually rest in between words, things like that. That's all really important. And you can actually have a lot of information there if it's laid out properly.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll evaluate my blog post page and probably take it down.
You could just unpublish for now.
You can, yes. My goal was like, I would post it and then I wanted to post it on Pinterest so that I would drive traffic back to my website and up my SEO. I had like the intentions were there and my heart was in a good place, but then life got busy and I was like, I'm not doing this. Let's be real.
One thing I'll say that most people don't know is if you are doing your own website and you do decide to get rid of a page or a post, you do have to redirect it somewhere else. Or it's really, really bad. They're going to get a page not found error. It's really bad for SEO and for Google and for the user experience. Yeah.
SEO, I think, is like we could have a whole other
talk
discussion around SEO for sure. I know we didn't really get into any of that today, but
that's a whole other topic.
It is. Yes, it is. What about we were talking about, I can't remember exactly, but pricing. What is your opinion about designers posting pricing or just alluding to the level at which their services sort of would, roughly cost? Do we post what our, minimum project minimum is? Do we not? Like, what is your take on that?
Yeah. So I'm going to give the same kind of answer I've been giving a lot. I think there's no right or wrong. It really comes down to what's your brand and who's your ideal client in terms of whether you're posting that. I personally do not post pricing. And the reason that I don't and why I recommend sometimes not posting it is somebody might have a number in their head. And it could be a completely unrealistic number for what they're looking to do or the kind of service that you offer. And if they see your number and it doesn't align with their number,
they're gone.
They may never even fill out your inquiry form. And you don't even know that they might have been potentially interested. Whereas if there is no price there and they do have a price in their mind, they're going to fill out your inquiry form. And then when you have the opportunity to get on a discovery call with them and actually relate to them and form some kind of bond, and again, sell the transformation that your service provides, sometimes that number that they had in their head will go out the door. So I just feel like that's something very important. And I have had many people who have had a budget that's significantly less than what I charge and have signed on with me after the call. And if I had posted a price, even as starting at price, they might have never filled out.
No. Okay. That's good to know.
But again,
and I know everyone has like a different, opinion, but when I think about, the other, let's say luxury level or high end level designers and websites, because let's be real, we all go to everyone's websites to see what people are doing and just, get a feel of the market. Those people are not posting, project minimums or, kitchens or this or this or this. If you're doing more like entry level or working with DIY clients and you're just sort of assisting or maybe doing e-design and you're not doing full service, I could see maybe that's where you're putting numbers. But for this, full service luxury or high end market, I agree with you. I think, that sort of sets a tone. And those clients are usually in the beginning not looking, in the first 5 minutes to find out how much stuff costs anyway. Like price doesn't even come up until the very end or even a second conversation. So
right, because again, what they're looking for is to know, like, and trust you.
Yeah, like competence, professionalism,
that's much more important.
Your experience, all of that.
And if you're satisfying that know, like, and trust factor, again, that price is going to become somewhat less important.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel too that there's a way through all the messaging and all the verbiage on your site, there's a way to craft that level of, oh, this person's expensive or this person is not the type of person that's going to just come to Home Depot with me. And again, like I'm not knocking, there are all levels of service, but if you're looking to get into more of a higher end or luxury market, you know, those clients would be deterred by someone who's like, you know, we can spend 5 hours, I can go shopping with you, we can make your budget work, or we have budget friendly options. Like that's not what those clients are looking for at all. And so it might actually deter, you know, someone who
It
is
will
interested in
deter.
you.
It
Yeah,
will
okay, thank
deter
you.
them. It's sending
Thank you.
out it's sending out a very mixed message.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And especially with the high-end client, that cohesion and consistency across everything that you put out into the world is very important. So I'll just give an example. If so a lot of high-end clients are going to come to you via a referral, right? I mean, most of the time they're not Googling, you know, interior designer near me to find you. So let's say you worked with a client, Susie, and Susie recommended you to her friend, Karen. And Karen, even though it's a recommendation, still looked up your website and looked at your social. So, and let's say these are high-end clients and you're trying to attract high-end clients. If you have a DIY website that's not satisfying everything that they're looking for, Karen is now going to be like, well, how I don't what's going on here? Like this doesn't make any sense. Like I got a raving review from Susie, but I'm looking at this and like she doesn't even have her name on the website. Right. So you have to think about that. Disconnect breeds distrust. And the same thing is going to happen when, you know, it's okay to have a ladder of services and offer full service and also offer, you know, designer by your side or something. That's your ladder of services. I have a ladder of services, but if your primary service is that full service, that's what your website has to be geared to.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think too, with like younger or newer designers, you know, where they don't have that, you know, initial foot in that door in that high end or luxury market, you know, they're trying to build up clientele. They want to work with anybody just to get jobs. And then, you know, you get to a certain point where, okay, you've taken on a couple and now you'd like to cherry pick a little bit more, but you're scared to sort of set those parameters because you're afraid you're going to lose, you know, a potential part of the market. And I say, lose it. If you really want to level up and go to that next level, you have to be willing to say no to a certain group of people who, you know, just maybe can't afford to go to that next level with you. And that's okay, because there will be the next level of people who are there waiting for someone like you to work with them. So the whole,
saying no to someone is saying yes to someone else, making
it's
room
true.
for
Or just being available for that to happen. But the whole, unless you really want to dig in and take that, you know, DIY or designer for a day, or like, it's not, you know, you're not spending 6 months to 18 months. And trust me, there's a benefit to not doing those long projects too. If you're really wanting to get in on those like short, fast and quick turnovers, then your marketing, your messaging will be completely different. And you will talk about, you know, budgets, packages. That's another word that kind of, I don't know how you feel about that, but sort of like for, you know, higher end luxury, like we don't use the P word around here. I don't offer packages, you know, if clients reach out and like, do you know, what packages do you have for this? And I'm like, we don't, we just do full service, or we, you know, that's it. And over time, you can convert a lot of people who don't think they need full service into full service.
If someone messages me on Facebook or Instagram and they ask about my services and they ask about price, I will immediately say, I custom quote all of my projects. Happy to have an introductory call with you. I will not put pricing out there without speaking to somebody. Because if they're just price shopping, I'm never going to be your cheapest option. There's no
That's
point.
so interesting. Can I also just sort of tap into why I don't have that big questionnaire on my website anymore? I just have like my basic, you know, contact form. So I'll get an inquiry through there. Someone will message me and just ask like a very generic, like we're looking to do this. Like, can you tell me a bit more about your services, or how would you price this or whatever? And I use that sort of inquiry form through my website to reply to them by email. And I have like a canned email response. And it's like, you know, to better help me serve you, can you just answer a few questions for me? And this is where I use my questionnaire. Like if I had a questionnaire, this is where all those questions would come into play. And I really quickly, it takes me like 30 seconds to copy and paste. And then at the bottom, I use their name and I'm like, thank you so much. Like this will help me, better understand what you're looking for, and we can chat after this. I'll send that. If someone can't even be bothered to reply to that with more information, then I know for a fact, like, that is done and over with, and it's not even worth following up on or pursuing, because it's like, if they can't even spend a little bit of time to give you the information you need to better serve them, it's not the client for you. So
I
that's my
agree
test.
100% with you.
Yeah.
I do not have a phone number or an email address anywhere on my website.
So smart.
I only want to be contacted through my inquiry form, because I want, and I remember someone saying to me, well, what if they don't want to fill it out? I said, well, then they're not my ideal client.
So true.
They're not the right
It's like
fit.
the first step. If they can't be bothered to follow the rules, like I call them the rules or the instructions, right? If they want to go against that already, and it's something so simple as that, it's like, what's the rest of this project going to be like, right?
Exactly. And that's where everything about your business and your brand personality and your processes comes into play on your website. Your website can be as automated as you want it to, and it can be as personal as you want it to. And that's where really understanding how you want your prospects' first interaction to be like. Do you know what I mean? I have, after they hit, the submit button on my inquiry form, it redirects them to a thank you page that lets them know exactly what's going to happen next.
That's cool. I like that.
It's like, what's that after form submission process like? Because I want everything to be an elevated client experience. So you think about that right away on your website.
I love it. I love it. So as we're kind of like nearing the end of our chat here, I definitely wanted to tap into, you do custom website design, but you also offer consulting, and you do auditing. And then you also have templates available for designers to purchase. So Robyn, tell me a bit about that side of your business and how interior designers can reach out to you for assistance with that.
Sure. So it's not just website templates. I actually call it website template customization. So I have 4 different templates now specifically for the home industry. And the way it works is you choose one of them, you submit all of your content and images, branding to me. I will upload and format everything into the template and launch it for you. So all that technical back-end scary stuff, you don't have to deal with.
That's even better than just a regular template.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you so much for correcting me on that. That's amazing.
Totally okay. So that's the templates. And then I do website consulting and audits. And that's really for people who have DIY'd their website and just want a professional to talk to about it. So we can talk about anything from the layout and the design, user experience. We can talk about SEO, branding, copy. It's 90 minutes on Zoom, and you can record it, but you then go and implement what you've learned. I actually don't touch sites that I have not built myself.
Right. Smart.
Yeah. So it's a way for me to help.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. And I also work on WordPress. So, the fundamentals of website design and user experience are the same on whatever platform. So, if you decided to use Wix or Squarespace, we can still do a consulting session. You would just implement it yourself.
I love it. And you're located in the United States, but you don't
have to
be.
I'm in the United States. I'm in Massachusetts. I'm on Cape Cod.
Right. Yeah. But you can work with anybody anywhere, because that's the magic of digital.
Exactly.
The digital era.
It is. It's wonderful. Yeah. I actually have only had one local client in my 4 or 5 years in business. Yep.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too funny. Too funny.
Yeah.
I love the auditing. I think I'm going to actually do that myself, for not only for like my interior design site, but for the Design Life Inc. for the mentor website.
Well, that would be fun.
I built that one too. That was a beast. I kind of killed me, but I know for sure there are areas in there that I like it, but it's not where I want it to be at the moment. And I need another set of eyes onto it. So I think that's like an amazing service that you offer, especially for our industry, because we're so critical of ourselves and like what we're doing. And I think sometimes when we feel it's not perfect, we don't even put it out there, which is really sad. Like I feel it's better to launch. This is what I did with the Design Life Inc. site. It's like, launch it, because if you wait to make it perfect, you'll never really do it, because perfect's a myth.
Action, not perfection.
Yes. But having, someone's professional eye that works in the industry, I think is invaluable, to be able to kind of just take it, and work your magic, bring out the things that maybe, I missed, or I just, you're in the tunnel vision. You need someone else to sort of put some perspective onto it.
The best way to find out about the services or learn more, it is rdwdesignstudio.com.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 3 different services pages, one for custom, one for templates, one for consulting.
Mm-hmm. You're also on Instagram. So if everyone's on the Design Life Inc. Instagram page, you can search for RDW, and we follow each other, but you can go to see Robyn's page on Instagram.
Yeah. And I follow back designers and I post lots of tips. So,
yes. Yeah. And you're just, I think, so kind and so just authentic and generous in the way that the way you interact with people. So if you're a new designer and you're just sort of you don't feel like you have anything to put out there, or you're just not feeling good about what you have so far, I highly recommend talking to Robyn, because I know just a couple of minutes of talking with her, you're going to feel more confident. And I think she's going to give you some great tips and ideas to work with where you're at, so that you can feel proud about your website and your brand as you're growing your business and your brand. So that's good. So yeah, lots of information. And if you're looking to improve your website or have one built and you want someone that's familiar with the interior design industry, Robyn is your lady for sure. 100%. Thank you, Robyn. I would love to have you come back for a 2.0, and maybe we could do a little bit more on SEO, or maybe sort of the technicality about getting your site out there and like pushing it through Google.
To talk about SEO.
How do you get visible once you have the site? How do you make it work for you? I think that's maybe our next topic.
That would be so much fun, because I will just say, if you build it, they will not come.
I know.
You have
that
to
is
drive
very
traffic
true.
to your website.
There's more to it than just having a pretty site, but to start, let's start with a pretty website.
Let's start with that. Exactly.
That is a really, like, it just encompasses who you are as a designer and the message that you have and who you help. So thanks, Robyn. It was great talking with you. I hope you have a really good rest of your week, and we will definitely book you in for another live chat talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Crispin. This was really fun.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.